such little glory in a poor man's life. He works for his money and it takes a while. But a poor man's son could be a hero in the night, with a fistful of anger and the will to fight. Seize this moment in your hand, take it and run. There's a trigger in your mind, and you load it like a gun. Warriors, make it like the band. See, all this night we'll ride the devil's seat. Gonna stand our ground on this part of town, like the last of an ancient breed. Like the last of an ancient breed. Teen angels neath the lamppost lie, in an alley by the river, in the dead of night. Shared their blood and swore their vows to keep, while the citizens were in the throes of sleep. We'll seize this moment in our hands, take it and run. There's a trigger in your mind, and you load it like a gun. Warriors, make it like the band. See, all this night we'll ride the devil's seat. Gonna stand our ground on this part of town, like the last of an ancient breed. Like the last of an ancient breed. Seize this moment in your hand, take it and run. There's a trigger in your mind, and you load it like a gun. Warriors, make it like the band. See, all this night we'll ride the devil's seat. Gonna stand our ground on this part of town, like the last of an ancient breed. Like the last of an ancient breed. Like the last of an ancient breed. Hey, warriors, make it like the band. See, all this night we'll ride the devil's steed. Gonna stand our ground on this part of town, like the last of an ancient breed. Like the last of an ancient breed. Oh.
Be looking good, warriors, all the way back to Coney.
Okay, good morning, everybody. How are we all doing today? It is November 8th. It is Larsen Live. And the title of the stream is Dick's Out. Okay, the song was Last of an Ancient Breed by Desmond from the film The Warriors. And then briefly at the end there, we had Lynn Thigpen taking a break from announcing where Carmen Sandiego is to, do the DJing. I apologize for that. I was not expecting that. Yes, we played music from The Warriors because things are going to get real warrior real quick, thanks to certain political events. But first, before we talk about that, let's talk briefly about corporate shenanigans. And it does sort of tie into what's going on. We'll get to that in a second. So I don't know how many of you people collect Starbucks cups. I'm going to assume nobody. But Starbucks, I should say, had a new holiday cup, the Barista Cup. They are these little glass-blown cups of bears that are baristas. And, they're cute, I suppose. I don't know if they're worth $30, but, yeah, they're cute little cups, collector's cups. And people were lining up at 4 in the morning to get these cups. Some people I know, they're big collectors, and they went there, and literally what happened, the baristas right in front of them took the cups, basically put them in their own bags, and then said, we only have 2 cups available. Yes, people were very, very angry at this. There was a massive backlash against Starbucks. People were calling corporate, including, friends of my family. And, the baristas are going to get censured, and they're going to put new cups out sometime around, later in the holiday season, probably late November, early December. Yeah, Starbucks did choose the bear, Tim Adams. I don't understand why they couldn't have just made double the amount of cups so the baristas could get them and then they could put them, on the shelf. I also don't think these cups are worth, $2,000, which is what they're scalping for nowadays. But, here we are. People want their damn cups. Here, let me pull up the cups here. Just give me a second here. Okay. Yes, Starbucks speaks out following frenzy of barista cold cups. I mean, they're cute and all, but are they worth this much money for scalping? I mean, they literally look like the little honey bottles you get at the grocery store, so they're made of glass. Starbucks was retailing them originally for $30. Give me a second here. I'm just going to, jiff this. If Streamlabs wants to cooperate with me. Okay, yes, it's copied to my clipboard. Just give me 1 second here. Just a second. And, all right, here we go. I got it saved. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, people were really mad about these bear cups. Again, all this for a cup that costs $30 and probably costs about $3 in manufacturing. It's just a glass cup that happens to look like a cute bear. I said to my wife when we were remarking about our friend trying to wait since 4:30 in the morning to get one of these cups, I said, couldn't they have taken a page from The Simpsons and just, gotten some extra sand, burr, 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 burr. A couple of glass blowers could have done this in 20 minutes. When you're walking on the beach, enjoying hourglasses, making cheap glassware, think of where we'd be without sand. Sand, 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 burr, 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 burr. Yeah, it's a cute cup, but I don't think it's worth that much money. Tim Adams says Larsen Live is now Butters approved. I don't know what you're referring to. Was this song in an episode of South Park? Tim Adams says 2K is better than my XRP. Alpha Mariga says I won't even pay $80 for Mario Kart. I can bear the wait. Yeah, I'm not a guy who goes to wait outside stores on Black Friday. Because I think it's really just pathetic to do so. First of all, if your business model sucks so much that you're only profitable in the middle of November, you should get fucked kulak. So, I will not, in fact, be waiting outside for Black Friday garbage. There's pretty much nothing I can think of that I would wake up at 4 in the morning to wait for. Like, I genuinely cannot think of a damn thing I would get up to wait for. But yeah, speaking of kulaks and me sounding a bit communist, Zohran Mamdani wins the election for New York City mayor. And that's why I opened up with the Desmond Child song, because shit's gonna go downhill real fast. I don't think very highly of, Mr. Mamdani, Mamdani Sahib, or, is he Indian? I don't know where the hell he's from. I think he's Arab. Mamdani Effendi, whatever, who cares? The guy's a complete chode. I don't like him. And not just because he can't even bench press 120 pounds. I mean, that's the least of his problems. I mean, it's true that I don't respect men who can't lift weights for their, I don't respect their physical strength, but you can make up for that with other things. I mean, Stephen Hawking couldn't bench press anything, but, he's obviously respectful in other ways. Pause for, kind of pulling out the shirt there. But, yeah, in addition to him not being able to bench that much, he's also just a complete twat. People say, like, oh, he's going to institute Sharia law. No, I don't think so. I don't think Zohran Mamdani is particularly wedded to Islam as an ideology. I think he's much more wedded to gay race communism as an ideology. He is the man who's gone on record saying he wants to globalize the Intifada. He's also one of these cretins who's like, we should just, open up prisons and just, let's just legalize crime and let's just have free buses and we're all just going to dance around the trees with shiny new vibrators. Yeah. I don't care for the guy. Not the least of which because New York City already had one of these, like, wee shitlib, mayors back in the day, John Lindsay. And, it's not an ethnic thing because John Lindsay was an old stock WASP and he ran New York into the ground with this soft on crime bullshit. And, that led to the explosion in crime in the late 60s, which went pretty much up until, Giuliani's mayorship in the 1990s. Say what you will about Giuliani, he certainly has problems. Gropey problems, but he did reduce the crime, especially after David Dinkins, shat the bed. But yeah, it was a lot of bed shitting in New York from the late 60s until the 1990s. But people don't believe me when I literally say that, like, the Bronx had a reputation for being like a nice, boring place people retired to and they left their doors open. And I'm not joking about that. Ogden Nash literally wrote, like, little humorous poems about that exact thing. The Bronx. You could leave your doors open in the Bronx. Well, that sure as hell ain't the case now. There is a part of me which is actually kind of, like, looking forward to this, if only because, New York, when it was a crime-ridden shithole, produced, genuinely great works of culture. You had Taxi Driver, The King of Comedy, The Warriors, Escape from New York, and then the music, you had Lou Reed's Talking Heads, Cedar Street Sluts, New York Dolls, and so on and so forth. Maybe we'll get back to that, but I don't think so. Considering that, there's several reasons that this might not happen, not the least of which is that, like, more than 40% of New York City is currently foreign-born, and just want to vote for the brown man who would give them free shit. But, I'm not entirely surprised they would vote for Mamdani, but here we are. Tim Adams says Mamdani winning is not a surprise. Nothing substantial in NYC is going to change. It feels like conquest. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I don't think New York City is going to be doing well in the next several decades. But, who knows? Maybe we'll get some, maybe John Carpenter will be, like, stimulated to rise from his retirement bed and make, some more movies about dystopian shithole New York. Fortunately, I don't think Walter Hill is longer with us, so we're not going to get Warriors again. Well, at least we have the PlayStation 2 Warriors game, which is pretty good. Anyway, yeah. Mamdani is already under fire for charging people $13 for a beer at his victory party. I arrived thinking everything would be free, only to be charged $13 for a Bud Light, one progressive campaign worker said. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think that is what the average Mamdani voter was thinking. I arrived thinking everything would be free. Yeah. Incidentally, I was reading a Twitter post the other day, kind of related to this, saying that things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, and there's a lot of ruin in the country. What do I mean? Because as much as America is in decline, it's still better than most of the world, and a lot of people are coming here, and even like a degraded, shittier America is still better than, whatever crap hole they came from. Even the idea that you can people complain about crime, but even the idea that you could go to a 7-Eleven late at night and things aren't locked down, that's like magical to, somebody from, Unga Bunga land. Yep, there's a lot of ruin in this country. We had a good run, but here we go. Incidentally, related to the Mamdani issue, there was also, I believe, gubernatorial elections in, I almost said Somalia. It's Minnesota, but, yeah, I mean, it might as well be Somalia at this point. Yeah, so what happened? You had Jacob Frey versus Omar Fateh. I'm not sure if it was being the mayor of Minneapolis or the governor of Minnesota. Anyway, Jacob Frey won. Why? Because Omar Fateh was hampered by ethnic Somali blood feuds. Basically, you have a lot of people in Minnesota, Somalians who are from one tribe, and Omar Fateh is from another tribe. So they voted for the white man to spite him. Boy, what's great? What's great is that we imported, ethnic blood feuds from the Horn of Africa to come to our country because, we didn't have enough ethnic conflict in this country. We need even more. Isn't diversity great? It's just, it's wonderful. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know that many people from East Africa. Obviously, in America, most African Americans are of West African descent. I will say that one time, I was having a dog and pony show with a young lady in the backseat of my car in a parking lot in Newark, New Jersey, and some Eritrean parking attendant knocked on my door and told us to move. That was a bit unsettling. But, here we are. I came out okay and it didn't hurt a bit. Tim Adams says, Curtis Sliwa, good guy but too small of an appeal. I mean, if I were a New York City resident, I would have voted for Curtis Sliwa. Cuomo, nothing like the same old two-party failures. Mamdani won because of anybody but them. Yeah, seems like it. It also seems like people voted for Mamdani because of the free shit. We're just going to have, free healthcare and free childcare, and we're going to have free buses, and, everything's just going to be magical. Because public transportation in the United States doesn't have enough of a problem with, feral brappies, murdering people on buses. We need even more of that. We need them to be, we need them to be getting onto buses for free. Now, say what you will about the Soviet Union, they did have extremely strict policies against crime, at least later on. So, maybe eventually things will even out and we'll be just, boring gray mediocrity in the Soviet style, which is better than, the opening up the asylums brand of communism. Incidentally, the soft on crime, just legalize everything thing, that is very much something that came with the early days of communism. You can read the Gulag Archipelago if you want to read about that, where Solzhenitsyn literally talks about how, whatever the Russian equivalent of a brappy is, attacked somebody with a knife, and the other guy pulled out his knife and killed him, and he got punished for it. Because you see, the robber, the derelict, is just his nature to stab people with knives. But you, sir, you're an intelligent man. You should have known better. That's terrorism, to have a pocket knife. For some reason, Animal House is trending on Twitter. I don't know why. It seems to be a bunch of things that don't relate to the movie at all. Obviously I did show my wife Animal House to really ingratiate her into American culture, and I think that was very important. Anyway, all this talk about Zohran Mamdani and Somalian blood feuds in Minnesota ties into my next story, and in fact the title story, Dick Cheney is dead. Dick Cheney, the architect of technically both Gulf Wars, is dead. And that directly does relate to the Mamdani thing and the Somalian thing. Why? Because Dick Cheney was under the impression, he told us that we got to fight them over there, so we don't have to fight them over here. And then he proceeded to bring them over here. Bang up job, Dick. Yeah, I was going to open up with War Pigs, but I feel like it's been done. So I made it a title story instead. Yes, Dick Cheney. The man is dead. And everybody's pouring it out, pouring out 40s for the dead homie, Dick Cheney. Because in the last few years of his life, which really extended much longer than it should have, considering the man had his first heart attack at the age of 37, he denounced Trump and he supported Kamala Harris. So everybody was like, oh my God, Dick Cheney, the brave resistance leader. We love him because he's not Trump, and he criticized Trump. Oh, we miss you, Dick Cheney. We love you. I'm going to put Dick's dick in my mouth, etc., etc., etc. It's never going to stop blowing my mind that everybody's trying to, rehabilitate W and Dick Cheney at this point. Look, I always say, I kind of feel sad because I actually lived through, the last decade or so of, American peace and prosperity, in the 90s. My brother was born in 88. I'm born in 91. So, we have, we got to live through, the good times. It wasn't perfect. Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton, they certainly were not perfect men. But considering what came afterwards, it was a lot better. So I, dimly, Prince Iranon remembering, the lullabies of his mother, I dimly remember those halcyon days of American peace and prosperity. I remember how, the Soviet Union had recently fallen, and it seemed like we were going to go into the glorious, new future. Oh boy, that didn't happen. I remember when people were actually cutting the military budget. Say what you will about Clinton, he did do that. And, as I always like to say, remember when the most embarrassing thing about politics was, fat men misplacing their pants? I'm referring both to Boris Yeltsin staggering around Pennsylvania Avenue in his underwear on a diplomatic visit, and of course Bill Clinton's, various marital infidelities. So, let's see. I think I would have been in 5th grade. yeah, 5th grade when W came to power. So, my adolescence was during, the War on Terror and the Patriot Act and the Iraq War and, all that crap. Okay, I saw how everybody hated him. And they hated Dick Cheney. So don't you dare come to me and tell me that, they're the principled good Republicans. You, sir, can fuck right off with that. Hey, Tim Adams says, celebrate good times, come on. Then some kind of singing whale. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say Dick Cheney was all bad. I mean, he was the Secretary of Defense for the first Gulf War, which we were, in and out during, we were in and out in 4 months. We delivered an absolute shit kicking to Saddam Hussein, and then we left. So, I don't know exactly what happened that made the second Iraq War such a complete debacle. I know people would say, the no-bid Halliburton contracts. And I'm sure Dick Cheney did make money off the whole thing, but, I mean, I'm pretty sure he would have had ties to Halliburton back in 91, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I do like how, John Dolan, the war nerd, always like to say, he would always say, I'm semi-convinced that Dick Cheney is, some kind of Iranian, secret agent, because the complete disaster of the Iraq War literally handed everything to Iran. They didn't even have to fire a single bullet. That might actually make sense. I mean, I know Dick Cheney is very, very white, but, they could have kept him in a basement for a few months to kind of get the pigment out of his skin. Yeah, as you can tell, I don't particularly care for the man. I mean, he's very much, he is the architect of neoconservative horseshit that we still deal with today. And, it doesn't change the fact that the world we live in now is to a very large extent his doing. Yes, the New York Times had an article for Dick Cheney, a journey from champion of war to voice of resistance. His late-in-life anti-Trumpism changed his image for some longtime critics. Yeah, I bet he was anti-Trump. I mean, say what you will about Trump, he is not getting us involved in bullshit 20-year-long quagmires. And Dick Cheney is just, we can't have that. We can't have, the idea that America doesn't have to be at war constantly. Heaven forbid. But yes, it's an absolute tragedy. Dick Cheney died before he could see World War III happen. I mean, I don't know. We've all read the reports claiming anywhere from 1.5 to 4.5 million people died as a result of the Iraq War. I don't believe that, because the methodology they use in those studies is really kind of spotty from what I've seen. And also, pretty much everybody agrees that the Afghanistan war killed about 40,000 people. So what, all of a sudden Iraq killed 100 times as many? Yeah, I don't think so. I think an actual accurate estimate would probably be, for the two wars together, probably somewhere around, at least 100,000, maybe 200,000 people dead, and that's counting all sides. So, yeah, good 200K people dead for what? I mean, we didn't even get any oil out of Iraq, so what the hell was the point of all this? I mean, Dick Cheney didn't disown his lesbian daughter, so I guess that's nice. Okay, not a lot of people talking today. 3 people are currently watching. That's lower than average for me. Also, fun fact. the Hawk Tua girl still does her podcast, and she had about 9 people the last time I saw. So, yeah, I can fairly consistently beat the Hawk Tua girl because I've maxed out at about 20 people. So, hooray. At least I have some achievement there. Yeah, 4 people are watching now. Ponythroat is, of course, getting food. I assume he, got on the cobblestone path and, ran down the road there to go to the horse trough. Oh, yeah, fun fact. My wife, being from South Africa, had no idea what a brony was until she saw this subculture mentioned in an episode of Hot in Cleveland. She was utterly flabbergasted that there was a subculture of grown men who were into My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. So I had to pull her aside and explain to her that there were some strange doings transpiring around 2010. I mean, I guess I shouldn't entirely be surprised that, bronyism didn't go to South Africa. Which, incidentally, does tie into another story, a little bit of Twitter silliness. I know we're kind of jumping the gun a bit. But, there was a TikTok that went a bit viral where a member of the American Communist Party explained how absolutely embarrassing the American far left is when he tries to converse with communists in other countries. He has to explain to them that, in America, communism revolves around, trans rights, and the other communists are like, what the hell does LGBT have to do with communism? He's like, I don't know. Then I have to explain to them how half of my Communist Party is furries. Then these, Italian or Turkish communists are like, what the hell's a furry? And he's like, oh, God, they're, people who put on animal costumes and they have sex. And he's just, putting his head in his hands and cringing. They say, what do you mean you got kicked out of the party because, you don't support LGBT rights, or you don't even think it's that important? What does that do with communism? And these people are just stunned. They look so shocked and confused every time when I tell them that. It's demoralizing. Yeah, I'll bet it is. You got to see this TikTok. This guy is just cringing when he has to explain to these foreign communists what a furry is. I'm embarrassed by the American left every time I travel. Yes, I'm also embarrassed by them. But, I guess that does make sense. Since communism is, for the most part, a fringe ideology in the United States, it tends to attract absolute cretins and dinguses. Biff Slankovich says, hello. Hello, sir. But yeah, in conclusion, fuck Dick Cheney. I mean, it's pretty impressive that the man had a heart attack at the age of 37. I'm 34. I'm in pretty good cardiovascular shape. Not to brag, but I set a PR for time rope skipping last night. So, yeah. Maybe in 3 years I'll become a fat tub of shit and, have a heart attack. Yeah, Dick Cheney, first heart attack at 37. 3 heart attacks by 47. Quadruple bypass surgery. 4th at 50. Okay, severe heart failure requiring defibrillator at 60. Okay, transplant of arteries and legs at 64. Heart transplant at 71. Boy, that's a lot of heart attacks. That's full-on, Bob Swirsky's super fans levels of heart failure there. Hey, Tad, how many heart attacks is that there? That'll be a baker's dozen there, Bill. Now, heart attacks are a good diversion here. But now we got to talk about a team known as the Bears. Okay, I'm done with that. And I've speaking of the super fans, I keep looking for this. There was one well, there's actually two instances of that skit that I've been looking for, but I guess they're not on YouTube. One is the one where they have Michael Jordan. Well, there's two with Michael Jordan. The one they have is not the one I'm looking for. And the other one is the one where Chris Farley's character has a heart attack, and then he like kind of goes through like the tunnel, and he sees all his relatives, and they all died of heart attacks. God damn it, NBC. I don't know. There's something I find distasteful about a 71-year-old man getting a heart transplant. It seems very vampiric, I suppose. Like an elderly, corrupt man getting a young, strong heart, which he will then proceed to ruin. But, you know, like all vicious, cowardly men, he fears meeting his maker, I suppose. Okay, Alf Rodriguez says, I don't feel bad for him because he's a commie. Presumably not referring to Dick Cheney, but referring to that TikTok guy I was referring to. Yeah, I don't feel bad for him either. Let me see the guys. It's a Grotto_11. If you want to look at that moron's TikTok. But yes, the communists are just doing their thing. But hey, at least some communists are successful. Actually, and by communists, I mean communist China, which is basically not communist anymore. I mean, for some reason, I'm getting a lot of Twitter communism on my feed for some reason. A lot of people are saying, well, like, who says communism doesn't work? Look at China. I really don't think China's communist anymore. I mean, they're communist with Chinese characteristics, which is basically, if anything, National Socialism. You know, I would very much say China's more fascist than communist at this point. I would also like to point out that China, under hardline communism, had some of the worst famine, in fact, the worst famine in human history. It was only in the 80s when Deng Xiaoping took over that they started to turn things around. Anyway, China is having a massive immigration backlash as of October 15, 2025, which is funny because China has very much taken up the Soviet torch of lambasting America for its racism whenever it has a chance. This is funny because the Chinese government brought in some, whatever the Chinese equivalent of H-1B workers is, Indian workers, and the Chinese absolutely lost their shit. So China, just to clarify, according to the New York Times, Indian workers are the red line. Chinese people endure, being welded inside their apartments from COVID, social credit surveillance, organ harvesting in prisons, all sorts of authoritarianism. But when you bring in Indians, that's a hard line. We're not going to tolerate that, sir. Let me see if I can get a proxy for this New York Times, because it is, of course, behind the paywall. Okay, I can't. Let's see if I can search it up. Yes, stunning, racist backlash. I want to see what some of these comments are. Let's see. Yeah, I can't say that I can't find specific examples of it, but I'm going to wager something pretty bad, considering that, contrary to what they claim, China had its own system of racial classification that was used to justify slavery of dark-skinned people in its own history many years ago. 1 second. There's the wife. Hello. Okay. Alpha Riga says China's not doing as hot as people think. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they are very much people who just think slapping LED lights on everything makes things look like it's futuristic. I mean, with that being said, I will say China did end extreme poverty in its country, and I think that's, an accomplishment, certainly. But yeah, they're definitely not doing as good as they think. Okay. So let's see, what else is going on? Is it time for more lighthearted things in a little bit? Oh yeah, speaking of communist China and kind of making my point that they're basically not communist anymore. One of the bits of communist propaganda I'm getting on my Twitter from @BattlementLK. Over 80% of traders on the Chinese Marxist Leninist stock exchange are individual traders. In America, it's less than 25%. It's big money. China's markets are the most efficient money markets that have ever existed. I'm going to say that again. China's Marxist Leninist stock exchange. The Marxist Leninist stock exchange. Yeah, Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin, real big on day trading. Oh, dear God. Does nobody understand what communism is anymore? Well, I mean, this is how workers seize the means of production, by buying stocks. Yeah, IPOs. IPO is really big in communism there. I mean, China has a booming stock exchange, so I really don't think they're communists anymore at this point. I mean, I don't recall Karl Marx speaking too much about day trading and stock exchanges in either of his books, Das Kapital or the Communist Manifesto. I mean, he was big on money, though. I mean, he was constantly begging Friedrich Engels to send him $20, but that's a whole different story. Okay. Biff Sankovic says, a great bumper sticker I saw today, Parasites of the World, deer tick, dog tick, Trump lunatic. I'm pretty sure that's been said about other people, but here we are. Alpha Marigi says, I learned a myth in Chinese history class where the southern Chinese said to be descendants of a princess who was forced to marry a dog, because the king promised whoever rescued her gets her hand. I was not aware of that story. But yes, China, contrary to what they claim, had a long history of slavery, and they too, just like Europeans, justified slavery by oppressing the dark-skinned people. I don't have a link on hand, but it's there. Okay. I'm getting some getting some Twitter notifications. I apologize. It's got to respond to somebody else. But yes, I digress. Okay. Ponythor says, I just got back to the stream, and the first thing I hear is a long history of slavery. Yes, I was talking about slavery in China. I was talking about how, just like the Europeans, they also had racial theories on how dark-skinned people were inferior to light-skinned people. Now, of course, this also ties into the, the Marxist-Leninist stock exchange of, China. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's see, what do I have here? I think we're going to get into the silly side of things. Well, I guess we're going to briefly touch into something that's political, but also more social. Also in the New York Times, an article. The Sierra Club embraced social justice and it tore itself apart. Well, gee, I could have told you that. Could have told you that about 10 years ago. So the Sierra Club, for those of you not aware, was at one point the predominant American environmentalist organization. Founded by John Muir and Gifford Pinchot and Theodore Roosevelt to preserve the beautiful nature of the United States. They were strictly a one-issue group. They wanted to preserve the environment. And basically in the 90s, they were given hundreds of millions of dollars by somebody who said, do not ever talk about immigration. Because the Sierra Club for a long time was immigration restrictionists. Correctly reasoning that the more people you have, the more difficult it is to protect the environment. I should also point out that the early environmentalists were like, wasp eugenicists. That's a whole different story. And that's actually kind of related if you think about it. And, it's really been that way since the 90s. I mean, it's been like hard left-wingers gutting the Sierra Club and wearing it like a skin suit. But now I guess it's finally coming to roost. Yeah, so they embraced social justice. It turns out that, Black Lives Matter marches don't really have anything to do with the environment. And the Sierra Club is basically hitting the fan right now. It is, the shit is hitting the fan. I should also point out that the current president of the Sierra Club is a black man who was saying, can we please stop talking about racial stuff and just focus on the environment, the thing we're supposed to be doing? And he was basically shut out. Yeah, so you can see pictures of like the two sides in the Sierra Club, and you can pretty easily tell who's like, an actual environmentalist and who's some grifter who's trying to hijack this environmentalist group for whatever bullshit politics they want. So you can see like there's it's 4 pictures. I'm not going to post it, but yeah, there's like 2 people. One is Aaron Marr, the president of the Sierra Club. One is some lady. They look like hikers. The president, he's literally wearing a hunting jacket and boots. He looks like somebody who enjoys the environment. The lady looks like some crunchy, like, hippie granola lady who, does go into the woods. Granted, she's probably, finding magical herbs for Wiccan ritual, but, she does look like an experienced hiker. Then you have these 2 pudgy dweebs in sports jackets who look like they've never been on a hike in their life. And, those sports jacket wearing chodes, they're the guys who are ruining the Sierra Club. Erica Dodd says Palestine is an environmental issue from our standpoint. People are part of the environment. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. I mean, obviously people are part of the environment, but the environment has to predominate. It's the environment has to be a natural cathedral that man, enters with permission, as John Muir and James Fenimore Cooper would have put it. Oh, but they were like evil white men, so screw them. Okay. Let's see. Mesmer says in comments, I just hadn't realized you were still producing vids. Yes, I do live streams predominantly because I have a normie job. But yes, I do occasionally produce long-form videos. Biff Slankovich says, Gianni Infantino of FIFA says he's going to give Trump the Peace Prize in the World Cup. I mean, that's hardly the worst thing FIFA's ever done. We can talk to Sepp Blatter about that. Ponythroat says, actually, Black Lives Matter marches do have a lot to do with the environment. Chicken littering is a real problem. Well said, sir. Incidentally, why don't we just, speaking of chicken, let's just get right to the silly side of things. I got a few things to talk about there. A fast food restaurant in Paris promised free fried chicken bowls on its opening day. And a group of Afro-Parisians who evidently want to just embody every negative stereotype about themselves literally started a stampeding riot over that chicken. I talked about like the Starbucks bear cups early on. Little glass cups of bears are not worth, stampeding over. Neither is fried chicken. If you want fried chicken that badly, just get an air fryer and make your damn chicken. Oh, and of course, there's just litter everywhere, because of course there is. I was under the impression that the French had the greatest cuisine in the world, but that fried chicken, that just BTFOs all that, all that ratatouille and mirepoix and all that crap. Yeah, eat shit bouffe à l'orange. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? I got a few more links to open up. All right. Let's see. Something goes viral on the internets. It is the Disney rash. What happens? Plus-size park hoppers get rashes on their legs and like sort of capillary things in their legs. This is pretty much exclusively found in really, really, really fat people who go to Disney World or Disneyland or Disney California Adventure or any of the other Disney parks. This is called the Disney rash. Now, is it something specific to Disney World, or is it just because these giant heifers, this is the only time in their life that they stand up for more than half an hour, and they have capillaries bursting in their legs? Or could it be that, Florida's really hot and they get sweaty? Boy, Disney adults are just embarrassing, aren't they? I do love the euphemism parks, plus-size park hoppers of just, fat people. So yeah, if you're going to Disneyland, watch out for that Disney rash. Okay, referring to the fried chicken thing, Al from Regan Ponythroat have a couple of things to say. The Boondocks was too subtle. Yes, well, to be fair, that Boondocks episode, I mean, I like music. I learned how to play music for my own entertainment and enjoyment. I also enjoy the occasional bout of cooking, so I actually am capable of making my own fried chicken. Ponythroat says, let's not blame immigrants for the litter. Paris was always drowning in that. He said, I loved Disney when I was 5, says Tim Adams. I mean, if you like the movies, that's fine, but it's like these, like, the Disney adults, like the people who pay like $20,000 to get into Club 33. It's you're taking things a bit too far, sir. There is no corporation that I'm that wedded to. I don't care how strong your childhood nostalgia is. Tim Adams says, not chicken, buffalo. Yes. I mean, if there is a corporation that I would be like a Disney adult for, it'd probably be the Nintendo Corporation, but even I'm not that much of a fan. I mean, you're not going to see me getting like Nintendo rashes. My 400-pound carcass staggers around like Redmond, Washington. I'm speaking hypothetically, of course. I'm not a giant fat tub of shit like these Disney park hoppers. It's also worth pointing out that people who actually have children and go to Disneyland, they're just stunned by how many, like, you know, obese 30-year-old millennials there are. Okay, moving on from that. I saw something in sporting news that really upset me as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Okay, your eyes do not deceive you. Stupid Moneyball horseshit has come to martial arts. It was, so basically the UFC has a strictly jiu-jitsu branch of its, corporate structure. And we saw the, I guess the thing was the Bantamweight World Championships today. Between Mikey Musumeci of the United States and Kevin something or other, I think he's Brazilian. And they proceeded to just kind of slippity-slap each other as the Americans kind of hopped around on one foot like Adon from Street Fighter. And at no point did they ever attempt a takedown or a throw or a submission hold. The metagame has gone too far here. Like, I am a jiu-jitsu practitioner myself, but this is just embarrassing. Like, Musumeci is literally doing, like, crane kick poses, kind of hopping around. Like, this goes on for 30 seconds, and neither man, like, basically makes contact besides some, like, really weak hand fighting. This is just embarrassing. You know, I blame Billy Martin for this, or the Sabermetric guy. I almost said Billy Barty. That's not the guy who wrote Moneyball. Just give me a second here. Billy Bean, sorry. It was neither Billy Martin nor Billy Barty. But yeah, for those of you who don't follow sports, Billy Bean wrote this like statistical analysis of baseball where he kind of analyzed, like how you get, highest percentage of, on bases, stuff like that. Which pitches are the most, which pitches are the most likely to, strike out the guy. And, yeah, it's basically sports analysis, advanced metrics on statistics. And, yeah, it's basically why all sports are boring now. Everybody's doing this, like, kind of like penny pinching sabermetric thing. Everybody's trying to, play statistics instead of doing things that are interesting. It's why, three-point shooting has... basically basketball now is just three-point shots and layups. Like, nobody's doing anything cool anymore. Nobody's throwing interesting pitches in baseball. And, yeah, apparently in jiu-jitsu, everybody's just kind of, skiddily bopping around, not taking any chances and shooting for a takedown or a throw or anything. It sucks. Tim Adams says, I'm observing how quickly BJJ's been compromised, just like TKD and karate. Yeah, pretty much. it's being watered down into a, pansified sport, just like karate and taekwondo and kung fu and everything. Now, fun fact, like my jiu-jitsu, mestre, he will literally like yell at you if you like pull guard. Like if you just like, if you see somebody just sort of, start a roll and then the guy will immediately go to his back and like get into like a guard position, like he will like stop the class and just yell at you for doing that. So I'm glad some people don't do this, but yeah, this is embarrassing. But yes, literally like Tim Adams says, the exact same thing that happened with karate. Starting in like the late 70s, it became this like, tippy-tap like point shit instead of actual fighting. Yeah. Like even me, like I'm not like a particularly great fighter by any means, but I do it, recreationally as a hobby. And me as like, from the, mediocre amount of kickboxing, like I have skills in, I'm just like, God, I just want to like sweep that guy's leg out from under him. But yeah, this is just terrible. As a jiu-jitsu-ka myself, I'm embarrassed on behalf of my sport. And, meanwhile, my wife is just like, all the jiu-jitsu I've seen is just the most boring shit I've ever seen. Which, I mean, yeah, it's not very visually interesting. Okay, Pony Throat says, isn't faking injuries to get free kicks the backbone of modern soccer? I mean, yeah, basically, like, flopping is a thing, and I used to play soccer in high school, and like I hate flopping. Like I hate it so much. Like I know it's strategically and statistically it helps, but it just it sucks. And I think you should penalize flopping. Okay. Okay, Tim Adams says my mestre is a good man. Ponythroat says the only point should be the points of your shattered fingers protruding from your skin. Well, let's not do small joint manipulation, sir. Okay, Tim Adams says, my last jiu-jitsu match in 1990, I was 165 fighting a 360-pound pro wrestler. He broke my sternum and 4 ribs. Ooh, that's pretty rough. I mean, I've fought through like a sprained wrist once. I managed to win, but it's not nearly that bad. I also and this is not even in like a tournament. This is just in like, like a spar at the gym. I had a guy who outweighed me by 60 pounds, like just picked me up and body slammed me on my back, and I still managed to, beat him from my back. Then I had like a massive bruise going up the left side of my back for like the next week and a half. You ask my wife about that. Alpha Marigi says, voting for Mitt Romney is a layup, but don't just take it from me. Take it from the Black Transformer Jazz. Not sure what you're referring to, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was some attempt at political relevancy. So what's going to happen with jiu-jitsu? Could it be that there'll be a bunch of different jiu-jitsu federations with tiny permutations on the rules, like there is with kickboxing? Yeah, probably. But hopefully what'll happen, like kickboxing, is that things will kind of homogenize into a rule set that doesn't suck. But yeah, I hate this meta game crap. Yeah, speaking of martial arts, that goes for you too, Tim Ferriss. The 4-hour work week guy. Him and his like bullshit, like, oh, I won a Sancho Kung Fu tournament just by like bodying people and then shoving them off the lei tai. He just did that like 8 times in a row and won a tournament. I hate that. Yeah, just take all the fun out of sports, why don't you? Okay. Let's see. Okay, going viral is a Twitter post from The Wine Cowboy. He says, in Argentina, we gather around the table to slow down, spend time with family and friends, and choose some food. We balance it all with great red wine. The pulse slows down, stress melts away, everybody's smiling and poking fun. We call this Sobremesa, the art of lingering after a meal. So, in other words, Argentinians sit around after dinner and, chew the fat, just like literally every other group of people on the planet. There's something I find really insufferable amongst certain anthropologists. Well, they'll take some basic, human experience like having a barbecue or sitting around the table having drinks and, just socializing. And they'll, claim it's some, magical brown people thing that nobody else has ever invented. It's Sobremesa. Ooh. Wow, you have a word for sitting around the table bullshitting. Yeah, us gringos, we don't do that. No, we just eat out of a trough and then we go back to work because we're Puritans. That's how we do. No, actually, we don't do that. It's like that. Mimetic Sisyphus had a pretty funny post about this. In my culture, food is important. No, you don't understand, man. Dinner with family is like a ritual. You mean dinner? No, man, it's totally different. Then when people call him out on this, he literally was under the impression that Americans don't, socialize after dinner. We just eat as quickly as we can and get back to work. I gotta say, it's really annoying when people from other countries, they watch movies, and they're like, hey, man, I know exactly what goes on in America. No, you don't, sir. Yeah, it's just those Puritans, they don't know how to have fun. Me. Idiots. Okay. Tim Adams says, I remember Jazz. Was that a Scatman Crothers? I know he did the original voice of Jazz. What the hell's going on with my viewer count? I went from 8 to 2, in a second. Tim Adams says, bring back slamming. Pulling guard will cease. Yes, I agree. I mean, my gym, it's A-okay to just slam a guy onto the ground. I say this as somebody who has slammed and been slammed many times. I have both given and received slams many times. Alpha Marigis says, my hatred of metagaming is why me and my brother traded places in terms of appreciating esports versus casual elitism. Yeah, I agree. It's just it just takes the fun out of everything when you have these nerds just statistically analyzing everything. When was the last time you saw somebody throw a knuckleball in baseball? Or when was the last time you saw anybody throw anything in baseball other than just fastballs and then go back to the dugout and put their elbow in an ice bucket for the next 3 hours? Pony Throat, referring to Sobremesa, says it's a universal experience common to all humans, like wanting to punch wine snobs in the face. Well, yes, clearly. Hey man, food's important to us. It's not like us. Yeah, the guy literally says Americans don't know what it's like to slow cook meat over a fire, as if we didn't literally invent barbecue. It's also like that joke where it's like, hey man, I bet your ethnicity doesn't, put plastic bags inside other plastic bags. His cultural snobbery is such horseshit. Ponythroat says metagamers ruined competitive laser tag. Oh yes, they did. Nobody moves in laser tag now. It's just a bunch of spastic nerds shimmying about. Okay, moving on from that. In Hollywood news, there is going to be a new Mummy movie, not directed by Steven Sommers. Okay, Matt Bettinelli, Olpin, and Tyler Gillette are set to direct. Brendan Fraser is coming back, presumably dropping all the weight from the whale. And yes, I know it was a fat suit. I'm joking. If I remember wrong, isn't he like basically half crippled at this point due to, years of doing action movies, basically breaking his body down? I mean, good for him that he's getting work, but I don't know if this is going to be successful. Not the least of which is because, Steven Sommers is not coming back to direct the film. By his own admission on the DVD commentary, Steven Sommers is basically an overgrown child who, got to live out his dream by making a goofy action movie. He literally said he grew up watching the old, Errol Flynn, Douglas Fairbanks movies from the 30s, and this was basically his modern version of that. Is there anybody in Hollywood who grew up watching those movies? I mean, I did, but I'm not given tens of millions of dollars to make movies, so, what can we say? Hey, does anybody even know what those movies are? I know the kids sure as hell don't, considering that when I teach World War II, I show them excerpts from Captain Blood, and nobody's ever heard of, these mustachioed swashbuckle men. Gee, I wonder if Rick is going to be a washed-up, bitter, divorced husband, just like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker and all the other male heroes who have been, castrated by, women directors. Ponythroat says, we need to get an even worse CGI Dwayne Johnson. Yes, that would be good. He also says, I don't think anybody saw the later Mummy movie in China. Yeah, that one wasn't great. He says, I have a special memory of this because I saw it in 1999 on Mother's Day. Yes, good show. I mean, best of luck to him, but yeah, good luck. I don't think it'll be great. Okay. Let's see. Moving on from that, I have a couple more stupid things to talk about. In archaeology news, the ancient Greek Philogelos, the oldest surviving joke book in history, went a bit viral on the Twitters. Some of these jokes are good and some of them are not so much. And some of it truly shows that there's nothing new under the sun. An idiot goes to town and his friend asks, could you buy me 2 15-year-old slaves? Sure thing. If I can't find 2 of them, I'll get you 1 30-year-old slave instead. Waka waka. An Abderite saw a eunuch talking with a lady and asked him if she was his wife. I am a eunuch. I can't have wives. He asked, is that your daughter then? And then, there's also a ancient Greek "take my wife please" joke. A man said to another intellectual, said, "I coupled with your wife. It is my duty as a husband to couple with such a monstrosity. What made you do it?" And I'm glad to see that we have, ancient Greek Rodney Dangerfield there. It's like, hey, I went to the Parthenon. It's, my wife said come to the Parthenon. Nobody's home. I went up there. There was nobody home. I mean, some of them are the same kind of jokes you would tell nowadays. I was very disappointed that there was no joke about how Athenians ride horses like this, but Spartans ride horses like that. I mean, that disappointed me greatly, but, what can you do? You can't get everything in life. Ponythroat says, I thought of a joke recently. What do you call inserting ice puns into speech? Cryogenic phrasing. I think you've mentioned that before, sir. It wasn't particularly funny the first time, but points for effort. Alpha Marigi says, the Mummy cartoon was decent. I never saw it. However, I did see The Scorpion King in theaters twice due to a delightful misunderstanding. Long story. Actually, it's not that long of a story. I slept over at my friend's house and we saw the movie. And when I came back to my house, my dad is like, hey, guess what, Larsen? We're going to the theater. We're going to watch The Scorpion King. So, yeah, I saw it twice. Speaking of terrible CGI Dwayne Johnsons. And finally, very strange things are afoot amongst the Celtic neo-pagans. Boy, it's strange how often I talk about the fair folk on this stream. This is the third time by my count. First, I talked about how fairy porn is offensive to the Welsh. Then I talked about the fairy porn business strategy. And now, apparently, the term fae is essentially a slur for the hidden folk. It's like naming your kid the N-word. Yes, so a at-goth goblin, whose name is apparently Fae, or at least she describes herself as such in the in her bio. Somebody sent her a direct message. Tradition posits that the beings you're calling the Fae hate that word with a passion. It's like the N-word for the hidden people. The word Fae is like the N-word for fairies. Oh my... Oh... God, this is so stupid. Do you think this person who wrote this, are they serious? Did they just sit down and do they genuinely think this? Are they doing this as a joke? Or did they actually, sit down with earnestness and write this down? So, I'm sorry, if Fae is the N-word for fairies, I guess there's two F words now. What do you call them? Are they just the Welsh? The Tuatha De Danann? How are you conversing with these beings, sir? Or ma'am. It's probably ma'am. I don't want to say that female literacy was a mistake, but someone at the very least shouldn't be reading. And I emphasize some women. Oy. This is... I'm sorry, I feel like there's a much more offensive term you could use for fairies to be like the actual N-word for them. Yeah, fuck you, you winger. You wingers. Go back to your country, winger. Oy, this is... Oh my God. I mean, I don't know if this person saying this is of the fair folk. I'm going to wager they're not. For the record, I think Titania and Oberon could speak for themselves if they wanted to. But I would honestly want to converse with this person just to kind of see how far the rabbit hole goes, so to speak. Excuse me, sir. Putting horseshoes over your baby's crib is ableist. If you don't allow the fair folk to kidnap your baby and replace it with a changeling, you're being racist, sir. Boy, Wales has a lot of explaining to do. Okay, Ponythroat says, the mummy always reminded me of Stargate in tone. Yeah, a little bit. Ponythroat referring to the Wingers says it might get confused with the band Winger. Yes, we don't want to offend Kip Winger, clearly. Yeah, so on that note, yeah, that'll be all for now. That's all I've got written down. Say your last pieces now, should you desire. If you don't, the bell dam will get you. Ponythroat says, yesterday a Zeitgeist sit in my room said, what is with all the horse stuff into my many horse electrolytes, horseshoes, horse shampoo, and horse desktop background? Do you think they're onto me? What, the fairies? Yeah, probably. Now, personally speaking, I don't know, what do you need to make something cold iron? I'm asking because could I theoretically just take a piece of rebar and just start cracking heads? Yeah, might as well. Might want to go to Home Depot, sir, and buy some rebar and start, hitting some wingers. Stupidest thing I've ever read. Anyway, yeah, you can say your last pieces now, should you desire. Okay, so I think that'll be all for Larsen Halleck. This has been Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.